verse 425. At the 5th and the 8th stage, the Bodhisattvas acquire proficiency in mechanical arts and philosophy and attain kingship in the triple world. The 5th and the 8th stage refer, of course, to the bhumis, the stages of the Bodhisattva path. The bhumis have been covered in detail in previous videos, in particular a video on the 10 bhumis and a video on the 11 bhumis, and there's a link in the notes below to the video index. There's also a very good article on the bhumis in Wikipedia. So the 5th and the 8th stage. The 5th stage is sometimes called difficult to cultivate or difficult to overcome. And this path can be very difficult. It is very difficult. It's been a while since I actually recorded a video. I've got quite a few videos in the pipeline, so I can usually upload them on a regular basis. But there's been a lot going on. I'm not sure how much detail I should go into. I like these videos to be a point of reference. A point of reference to enlightenment practice. To remind us to practice. To remind us to come back to this awareness which encompasses everything. And which is the very wonderful summit, peak, whatever, summum bonum, the highest good of our human existence. This is what I'm reminding myself of. It's the point that these verses are directing me towards. It's the point that I endeavour to come back to whenever talking about these verses. It's liberating, it's refreshing, it's wonderful. But it's difficult to come back to this point at times. I don't generally live in this space. Although it's true to say I'm becoming more and more anchored in this space. It's difficult, as the 5th bhumi points out, to cultivate. Because there's so much going on. And this is what I've had happening in the last couple of weeks or so. So much going on. I have a job to do. It's a nighttime job, which has been very challenging. I've spoken about it previously. I was right outside my comfort zone. It's actually a very good arena for Zen practice, but it's been very, very challenging. I've been quite ill, nothing serious, just a cold of sorts. It can leave you feeling pretty flat, and my back has been playing up. This trauma that I've described in the past that seems to be moving through my body has resurfaced. So that's been very challenging for a couple of months. Although a particular drug has given some tremendous relief from that. And also, what's been very tiring at the moment, intellectually exhausting, is another job that I've been doing. I've actually been lecturing to undergraduates on avant-garde and experimental music, believe it or not. It's very enjoyable, but very demanding, very exhausting. I've had to prepare a series of 3-hour lectures, and I'm actually engaged with another academic on this matter who's a very hardcore, serious academic. He's somebody I've got a huge deal of respect for, but my goodness, it's exhausting having to justify where I'm coming from. So that's been on my mind quite a lot. I have a lot of essays to mark and a lot of justification for my marking to do. So that's put me on the spot a bit. Of course, there's just the usual demands of everyday life. I don't like to ignore my wife, but I've got so much on my mind. And what about practice? I have these videos. So, I've been struggling to get here. Difficult to cultivate. Difficult to cultivate. I've got these verses. What are they about? What about my practice? I actually woke up this morning feeling a little bit sick inside, thinking about all the writing I'm going to have to do via email to this academic colleague, and how I'm going to have to remark these essays, which took me several solid days to mark. And I've also been quite sensitive to a few comments that people have left on some of the videos, and the huge personal struggle which some of you might be undergoing. It's a struggle against our body. Body might not be working quite right, or might be giving up on you. Struggle against the moods. These moods that are rooted perhaps not just in past psychological traumas, but they're rooted in the physiology of our body. If you're a man, then you'll very likely have testosterone to deal with in its many different manifestations. If you're a woman, you'll have your monthly cycle to deal with, or perhaps your menopause. Men and women, you might have to deal with your midlife crisis, or if you're younger, you've got to deal with your adolescence, dealing with all these hormones. This all comes under the umbrella of what I call moods. If you're feeling a little bit ill, as I was recently, it doesn't just affect you physically, it affects you mentally and emotionally. In fact, I think I was under the influence of this bug for a couple of months before some physical symptoms began to manifest. It was actually quite a relief to realise that I was ill, because mentally and emotionally I was feeling very, very rough indeed. We've got the demands of our ordinary lifestyle on top of all this. We need to survive, we need to make some money, or at least get our hands on some food and shelter. If you've got a job, there might be things about the job you don't like. People not behaving properly, an annoying boss who doesn't seem to want to make your job any easier. My goodness. The things we have to deal with. The trenches where it's all happening. But if you're watching this video, and if you have been watching these videos, then you know there's another option. You know that in surveying all of this, the battle trenches, there's something else. Something at the heart, the very heart of our being, which we can open ourselves to. Something absolute, something refreshing, something that puts everything else into perspective. It's something beautiful, something accepting, and in this acceptance there's something which we can denote by the word love. And when we can come into focus in this space, then everything else that I've been talking about, all the sorts of things I've been talking about, it's like they recede into the distance. And in this way, we can say that the fifth bhumi is difficult to overcome, because all these things, all these worries, all these anxieties do not have a foothold. And this is us practicing enlightenment. And this is where the eighth bhumi comes in. The eighth bhumi is described as the immovable. It's really a reinforcement of the fifth bhumi. It's the result of our ongoing enlightenment practice. And this transforms, or at least begins to transform, our relationship with the world. In effect, in short, we become masters of our own destiny. We're no longer victims. We're no longer victims of our moods, of our circumstances. Certainly, we may have to go along with them. We may have to go along with them. But we've transcended all the buttons that they press. I was doing my night shift job recently with a colleague who's been there actually longer than I have, but he was very under the weather. He was suffering from a cold or something, and he was very, very fed up with the job. And he reminded me of something that I'd said about it, and how I used to have something akin to a panic attack before going on shift. My shift begins at 11 o'clock in the evening. But about 6 o'clock, a few hours before, I would be overcome by quite a debilitating sense of nausea and something akin to a panic attack. And it's something I learnt to observe coming on and identify what it is. And it stopped bothering me. And this colleague of mine was beginning to feel like this towards the job, which is unfortunate. But instead of panicking about the job, I've now got to the point where I can almost look forward to going in. Last weekend was a holiday weekend, so it was going to be extremely busy. The hotel was full, and I was dreading it actually. But I didn't think about it too much, and the weekend went fine. It went fine. Hard work, but it was fine. And it hardly raised a ruffle in my feathers at all. So as I said, this job has been good Zen practice for me. And rather feeling the sense of panic, that I used to feel. I want to get to the point where I can actually look forward to go in and enjoy the job. Wouldn't that be something? So, the point here is, in my own little way, I've transformed something that was causing me to have something akin to a nervous breakdown during the first months when I first started it, to something which I can coast through, not letting it ruffle my feathers. So that's just to give a sense of what this verse is talking about. It says the Bodhisattvas, at the 5th and the 8th stage, the Bodhisattvas acquire proficiency in mechanical arts and philosophy. Well, mechanical arts represent our physical activity in the world. Mechanical arts is engineering, but it refers to our interaction with the world. So we are engaging with the world. We are participating. We've not retreated into some dark shell, some quivering nervous wreck. We are right out there engaging, not just physically but also mentally. This is the philosophy aspect. So there's the world. We don't let it press our buttons, but we leap right into it. And we engage because we're coursing in the 5th and 8th boomies. Hopefully. We can still crash. We'll still crash. But we keep coming back. We keep practicing. Ultimately, we are immovable. And in this way, we attain kingship or queenship. We attain queenship in the triple world, which is in everything that's going on, not just out there, but with our moods, with our bodies, because we're not letting it press our button. We're not letting these things press our buttons anymore. In this way, we're not being wagged by the tail. We're the happy puppies. We're surfing. We're surfing the world, surfing the triple world. Everything that life throws at us, we ride along with. We stop feeling sorry for ourselves. We look beyond the habit energy of our moods. And when I say we look beyond, we look deeper. We look deeper and deeper and deeper. We look deeper in appreciation of our essential nature, this wonderful awareness. And if it helps, use whatever religious icons appeal to you, because sometimes that can give us some help on the way. Very often we have little or no control what life throws at us, but we do have control in how we respond to it, ultimately.